This is a home studio recording of a talk given at the American Physical Society Global Physics Summit, March 20th, 2025 in Anaheim, California, in the History and Philosophy of Science section. The talk is about the idea that the scientific method is incomplete and that we can make it complete by adding to it something that I call the engineering method. This engineering method is sometimes conflated with the scientific method, but instead is different, co-equal, and cooperatively catalytic with the scientific method. Why does it matter that we distinguish the two methods? Because they are executed differently. So if, as a society, we want to improve their execution, we need to understand those differences. An outline of the talk is here. Much of what I will say is in this recent book on the right, but this is the first time the material has been discussed at a History and Philosophy of Science meeting. In slide 1, I'll define what I mean by scientific and technological knowledge, what I will call S and T. In slide 2, I'll define the scientific and engineering methods, what I will call S dot and T dot. In slide 3, I'll define the technoscientific method, what I will call TS dot. By this, I mean the scientific and engineering methods as they interact with each other. Let's start with S&T, the repositories of scientific and technological knowledge. Here I show the repository of scientific knowledge in blue on the left, and the repository of technological knowledge in green on the right. These two repositories of knowledge we break apart in turn into two bins. The science repositories' two bins are facts of human interest and explanations of those facts. The technology repositories' two bins are human desired functions and forms that fulfill those functions. Why do we break both science and technology apart into two bins? Because it makes it possible to capture the recursive nesting of both science and technology. On the science side, scientific facts can be thought of as questions looking for answers, for explanations of those facts. Those answers, those explanations can themselves be thought of as facts at a deeper level of the nesting, as questions looking for deeper answers, deeper explanations for shallower explanations. The refraction of light is an observed fact at one level, explained by Snell's law, one level below, in turn explained at a deeper level by the wave theories of Huygens and Fresnel, and then at an even deeper level by Maxwell's equations. On the technology side, technological functions can also be thought of as questions looking for answers for forms that fulfill those functions. With those answers, those forms themselves questions or sub-functions looking for deeper answers, deeper forms to fulfill them. An iPhone is a form that fulfills the human desired function of portable computing and communications, but it also represents an integrated collection of sub-functions, all of which require subforms like Gorilla Glass or integrated circuits to fulfill. And these subforms represent sub-sub-functions that in turn require sub-sub-forms to fulfill. Okay, that last slide was about the repositories of scientific and technological knowledge. How do those repositories advance? They advance via a scientific method on the left, what I call S dot, and an engineering method on the right, what I call T dot. I'll consider in the next slide interactions between S dot and T dot, but in this slide I'll confine myself to the simplest case in which they don't interact. The scientific method will be more familiar to you, so let me start with that. This method has three mechanisms. The first mechanism is S1 dot, the finding of facts of human interest. With facts in hand, the method proceeds to the second mechanism, S2 dot, the finding of explanations for those facts. This is classic theorizing. And then with emerging explanations in hand, the method proceeds to the third mechanism. The method proceeds to the third mechanism, S3 dot, the generalizing of those explanations to predict possible new facts, triggering a hunt for those new facts, coming full circle back to the first mechanism, S1 dot. The engineering method on the right will be less familiar to you, but is elegantly symmetric to the scientific method. This method also has three mechanisms. The first mechanism is T1 dot, the finding of human desired functions. Then with functions in hand, the method proceeds to the second mechanism, T2 dot, the finding of forms that fulfill those functions. This then brings us to the third mechanism, T3 dot, the co-opting of existing forms to fulfill functions they were not originally intended to fulfill. This we call exapting, a word borrowed from evolutionary biology, in which biological forms like dinosaur feathers for thermal regulation are co-opted for other functions like flight. Okay, in the last slide, we considered the idealized case in which the scientific and engineering methods don't interact. Let's now consider the real case in which they do interact. This is now what I call the techno-scientific method, TS dot. Let's again walk through the mechanisms, but this time for concreteness using steam engines and thermodynamics as an exemplar trajectory across S dot and T dot. Let's start with T1 dot, function finding. And here we add a nuance that function finding comes in two types. The first type of function finding is that which is motivated by practical utility, some practical human need like the desire to perform mechanical work. The second type of function finding is that which is motivated by learning, including scientific learning. This is the type that connects to S1 dot, fact finding. The motivation to find scientific facts inspires a technological function whose form can be used to find scientific facts. This brings us to T2 dot, form finding. Form finding also comes in two types. The first is that which is guided by engineering intuition. Often the form goes beyond and might even contradict what is known scientifically. James Watt's steam piston engine is a form that went beyond scientific principles of the time. The second type of form finding is that which is informed by science. The steam turbine engine is an exemplar of this. The improvement of steam engines through use of the then emerging science of thermodynamics. Before we had thermodynamics, though, we did have James Watt's steam piston engine. That engine could do mechanical work. That was its practical utility motivation. But it also represented a set of phenomena associated with the conversion of heat to mechanical work, phenomena that were unexplainable by the science of the day. And that brings us to T3 dot, exapting. The steam engine, or the phenomena that the steam engine exhibited, was exapted for a scientific purpose. That then flips us from the engineering to the scientific method to S1 dot, fact finding. These heat to mechanical work phenomena were exapted and became unexpected new scientific facts. And that then brings us to S2 dot, explanation finding, the finding of explanations to explain as yet unexplained scientific facts. In this case, the finding of the science of thermodynamics. And that then brings us to S3 dot, generalizing. How did we test the emerging science of thermodynamics? We tested it by generalizing it to predict new facts, new energy conversion phenomena not necessarily associated with the steam engine. Then we ran experiments to see if we could find those new facts, which of course flipped us back to the engineering method. Finally, having withstood those experiments, those tests, thermodynamics could then be used to inform the invention of the steam turbine engine, which flips us again from the scientific method to the engineering method. Before I leave this slide, let me make a couple of overarching points. One, The technoscientific method is reductionist. It breaks down the advance of S&T into various mechanisms. Why is that important? Because each mechanism is unique and requires different skills and environments to execute. James Watt's invention of the steam piston engine is a totally different type of work than Sadi Carnot's discovery of thermodynamics. 2, the technoscientific method is also holistic. It rolls the various steps back up into a complete system for how S&T advances as a whole. Why is this important? Because now we can see which steps might be rate limiting and try to re-engineer those steps better at a societal level. Let me close with a belief of mine that I'm pretty excited about, and that is that HPS&T can play an important role in engineering the intellectual and social processes by which human and artificial intelligences advance science and technology. The technoscientific method I discussed today is just one example of that. With that, thank you for your attention.